Casini per Nedved, gol! Pirlo, la conclusione in rete, Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco! Del Piero, gol! Alex Del Piero! Di Pogacar, Pogba, rete, un gol incredibile! Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus Stadium!
Welcome, everyone, to a live episode of Turin Giants, episode 322. Due to life events, we were unable to do a postgame for Lazio. And, well, let's be honest, our priorities shifted as the news came out that Igor Tudor, the manager for Juventus, had been sacked. And so today, what we're going to focus in on, though we will probably reference the Lazio game, what we will focus in on is Igor Tudor's tenure at Juventus, breaking that down, what we predicted, how we feel about it, as well as the look ahead, seeing what information Frederic has received since our scoop episode that we did this morning, as well as from a personality aspect, from a squad building aspect, from a management aspect, what we feel about the project that Juventus is set to do moving forward. Before we do all that, of course, I have to welcome our guests who are all over the world right now, Frederic and Kevin. Gentlemen, thank you for joining. How are you doing today?
Cheers.
I'm not following Kevin in the substances, or at least not the alcohol part. But it's been a hectic day. We met up at 7 o'clock your time, Zach. And my phone hasn't stopped buzzing since. So it's been hectic. But glad that we could share some of the insights that we gathered today with the people. So thank you all for joining in the chat as well. Looks everything set up to be a nice and very comfortable live session once again. So thanks everybody.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, no, just pleasure to be here, and got Mitch, Mohammed, Yusuf, Ryan, and I apologize if I butchered the pronunciation here. But Mulayamal, we're grateful for your attendance here. But this was a funny occurrence, and I was joking with my good friends earlier. I'm traveling overseas for business, and greetings from a hotel in Copenhagen. But I was on a flight from Oslo to Copenhagen earlier today, and sending messages with these guys around what was going on. And when I landed, I had over 100 missed WhatsApp messages from a flight that was only about an hour. And I just took a screenshot of that and sent it to these guys without even opening WhatsApp or the news. And I said, I know what happened. I know Tudor must be out. And lo and behold, he is. And we are here to talk about it.
And I think throughout this show, and we're going to be kind of share our open and candid thoughts about the Igor Tudor's, sort of short tenure. And feel free to share yours and your reactions in the chat, and we'll highlight them throughout the episode. We're all sort of just still processing it, also recognizing the large cloud of uncertainty that's hanging over our club beyond a simple manager. And we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. Before we do that, housekeeping matters. First and foremost, we are extremely active on Instagram at Turin Giants, doing a lot of cool content, soliciting questions and so forth. Best way to interact with us, obviously. For those watching live on YouTube, we've been working really hard to grow our YouTube presence for the first time in a while. So we appreciate all of you who are joining us there. Please like and subscribe. This type of thing really helps our team out and content creators in general. So I really appreciate you do that as well. And you can certainly get more information on turngiants.com. Alrighty, that's out of the way. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Igor Tudor obviously was sacked. Let's just quickly outline the timeline and facts regarding his
Zach
stay.
picked a terrible time to freeze.
Did I freeze?
You did.
Not
You did.
not for me.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
All right.
Oh my God.
No.
Okay, we're good.
Sorry, I am the dude with hotel internet, so I apologize.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's first lay out the facts, then we can comment on them. Igor Tudor was obviously hired later in the last season on March 23rd to help Juventus reach the top four for financial and sporting purposes, which he successfully did. We know he was not management's first choice to be manager this year, but they settled on him anyways. He led us into the elimination rounds of the Club World Cup, and then, of course, started this year with 3 straight wins before going on a run of 8 games without a victory, culminating in 3 straight defeats. That brings his overall record with us in 24 games to 10 wins, 8 draws, and 6 losses. I think we have to start here, and Kevin, will maybe go to you first. When we decided over the summer to keep Igor Tudor as our manager, did you expect not only an early exit, but one this quickly?
Short answer is no. Did not expect an early exit. Did not expect him to be eating his panettone in October. That certainly comes as a surprise for where we see ourselves now. Especially with some of the investments that were made over the course of the summer, albeit incomplete. And we've talked at length about that with, again, an incomplete squad entering the season. And of course, some early injuries in defense have further complicated that manner. But still, you look at the players we have, this squad, in theory, should be good enough to compete for top 4, regardless of who the coach is, because these are professionals who have been playing their whole lives to understand what Juventus means. And someone who I think understands, in Tudor, understands Juve, understands what it means, and brings that intensity. And we've talked at length, and Zach, you've been very clear to point this out, around Tudor's inability to coach a team for more than 50 games and never really compromising on what he believes in with the squads that he's managed. And we barely squeaked by at the end of last season, holding on to that 4th place with that late penalty and all the emotion that came with Locatelli finishing that. But with the benefit of the summer, with the benefit of the acquisitions, coming into the season with, I think, a lot of things across Serie A potentially working in our favor, with the coaching overhaul and kind of mass exodus that went around, and
Agreed.
and Atalanta without a Gasparini, Conte entering his 2nd season, and we always know what that means. The challenges with Milan, just what they have not been producing as of late. Inter with an aging squad, with the
Kivu.
humiliation of dropping. They were in the race for a treble and left empty-handed, bringing in a Kivu, and who I think kind of showed some promises, but not maybe up to the level of Inter standards. That we should have an opportunity to compete, and going 8 games without a victory is, I don't know, borderline inexcusable. The thing I will say, and I turn it over to Frederic, is I feel bad for Tudor. I do. I think he realistically is not of the coaching caliber for what Juventus is and what it represents. And he's here because of his history with the club. And he's here. We know the stories of him driving from Croatia here and just his commitment to what it means. But what I will say is multiple things can be true at the same time, in that He is not the main issue with this club. The challenges go way deeper into the management, into the structure, into the strategy, into what Juventus represents. But it can also be true that perhaps we did need a change and he wasn't getting the best out of this club. And whether it's the starting 11, whether it's game management, whether it's his ability to get the best out of the players on the pitch, it wasn't working. So I'm sorry to see him leave, but I also am happy to see a potential change. Although I'm not liking the names that we're seeing, we will get there. Uh, but I wish him well. I don't know what comes next for him. I know it's probably painful for a club that you represented over so many years, and it was probably the honor of his life to coach this squad. And to see it end this way in a bitter way, I feel bad for him. So I'll stop there.
I think some of the viewers agree with you. We got Vincenzo and Mitch both noting the management aspect of it, senior management aspect of the squad, Kevin. But I'm gonna send the same question I gave to you over to Frederic. Is his early sacking, especially this early, a surprise to you, Frederic?
I think we spoke about that, you and Isaac, in our episodes during the summer of the Scoop, where we thought that he wasn't going to carry out this season as a whole. I'm actually a bit surprised. However, if you look at the results, I think we should be happy because last year we dragged Malta into a long stretch of negative results, and the players followed, the results followed, and it led us into kind of similar situation. I'm pretty relieved that Komoli stands up right now, takes action. If it's the right one, we'll never know, but at least something has been done now. I feel bad for Tudor myself as well because he represents Juventus in a way we cannot imagine. On the other hand, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. We had a little spark of hope, hoping that this time it'd be different. If you look at the statistics from Tudor's career, unfortunately, it wasn't. And you have to be a very strong coach if you're able to coach Juventus, even if you have a lot of experience. And Tudor had none of those qualities. And it is my understanding that Kamoli had a different perspective of who should be coach. But given the fact that he just entered Continassa, so to speak, he tried with several, got declined, and then said to the people in charge who were in charge at Juventus at the time, okay, figure it out. I'll stand by you. I'll look aside, but if things go haywire, I'll be the first one to intervene. And he did just that. So it's a shame, but something had to be done. I mean, what we saw last night was inexcusable in every way, shape, or form. And I'm not trying to put the blame on Tudor as as the source of all evil, because he's clearly not. But he was limited as a coach. And now we'll see if this Juventus as a structure will survive and come out stronger than we have, because now it's really Kamoli's time. And now we spoke about this in great length. I think the coming period will be the period where we can assess what Kamoli does and how he does things and pass on judgment, if you will, because the honeymoon's over. And we've had a shit show of a honeymoon thus far. So I'm curious.
Yeah, the honeymoon ended in divorce, which is unfortunate. But we talked a little bit about the management side, and obviously, Tudor's weaknesses. But I think it would be unfair if we didn't also mention the players. I mean, with their grumblings in the background of players like Perrine Locatelli with his Instagram post right before the Madrid game or whatever it was, Cambiasso, sort of. Whether it's not necessarily resisting the manager, but sort of having their own ego that's inhibiting a manager from getting the best out of his players. Like Kevin, you had kind of referenced sort of a sick structure as well. What portion of blame goes to these players?
It's hard to determine a percentage, and all I can say is the players aren't without blame. I mean, these are professionals. Uh, we know that they make very good money. That all of us here would welcome the opportunity to be in careers that provided that type of income. And as fans who contribute parts of their lives towards supporting their performance on the pitch, like look at us right now. Three dudes sitting here talking about sporting team and great fans and followers joining us here live on YouTube, and the many who will listen to this recording afterwards take time. And what they ask is to see players show heart, grit, and determination. And I don't think any of us here are foolish to think that we're entitled to win every game just because we're Juventus. And I think we recognize, for those of us who had followed the team from 2012 through 2021 with the 9 title wins, and even prior to that for some of our older followers, that we were very blessed and privileged to witness that period, and that something like that was going to be unsustainable. But if you're putting on this shirt and you're representing this club and you stand up for the badge, there's a certain level of integrity. There's a certain level of
I'm trying to motion. Sorry, Kevin. I'm trying to motion to the thing, but my camera was reversed, so I got confused.
No, it's all good. It's we haven't seen the players put out consistent performances. We haven't seen them put out the grinta that we'd like to see. There's been way too many mistakes, from these players. And while the players on their own don't warrant Tudor still being here, they didn't help his cause.
Frederic, I know you've reported on some locker room drama. What's your take on this?
My take is that in every professional football club, in every locker room, you're going to have egos. And I'm fine with that because 90% of football players are big egotistical babies. However, if you are a world-class player that makes a difference on the pitch and you provide and win points for your club, then it's not right, but it's okay, to quote Whitney Houston. But now we have players that are awfully mediocre, that think themselves or see themselves as world-class players and act accordingly. And this is something that is unacceptable, that is really toxic or creates a toxic environment. And I don't have to, even put out names here. I think we can all pinpoint the people who contribute to a toxic locker room environment. But it's these people that think that they're better than the rest and deserve their spot on the starting 11 no matter what. So when I heard that Tudor was coming in, I had a little bit of hope. I was thinking that he'd break that cycle, get rid of overrated players, or at least put them in a position where they could self-reflect and think, hey, I have to work for my spot. I have to, sweat, blood, tears, whatever. But that didn't happen. No, the opposite happened. They reverted against Tudor in a sense, very sneakily. And I honestly think and hope that this is going to come bite him in the ass, because think of what you will about Kamoli, but he is fed up with the mentality of some players. And there'll be a lengthy discussion about the mentality of those players in question and the whole locker room in itself, regardless of who's going to be our next coach. And I'm honestly looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think the message here is that I think we're in agreement. Our message here is that we're sorry to see it go this way with Igor Tudor, an individual that we like, but it was probably time for him to go, despite admitting that there's been failures at every level, senior management level, the coaching level, and at the player level. I think a lot of but the questions are in the chat have to do with kind of looking forward and or to comment about management. Do we trust management and so forth? our friend Colo99 with the joke that Loca helped Tudor get fired, and now he got Spalletti, who is well documented to not like Locatelli. So hilarious. But I think let's kind of maybe round out the Tudor bit a little bit before we look to the future. And I mean, just a simple question. Kevin, we'll start with you. Tudor was only in charge for 24 games, a blip in the much wider history of Juventus. What, if anything, will you take away from his very short time in charge?
I will take away a man who I think wore his heart on his sleeve and jumped at the opportunity to represent the club that he loves. And the one example that I will give that I was fortunate enough to witness, having had the opportunity to go to many Juve matches, especially when I was living in Turin, I have never seen a coach come out during pregame warmups and be there with his side. Allegri, Conte, Malta, Sarri. I can't speak to anything before that. Sorry, I didn't see games. But the pregame warmups, players come out, put on a bit of spectacle for the fans. The coach is in the locker room. Tudor came out with the players. He was with them, even coaching them through warmups, challenging them, cheering them on. That's a man that didn't care for some of the protocol. He just wanted to be there in front of the fans with the players. And we can question his experience and ability to be a world-class coach and not being up to Juve standards. We can question the decisions that he made throughout his tenure, but you can't question his heart and you can't question his passion and what it meant to be a true Bianconero. That's what I'll remember. A guy that tried, probably shouldn't have been here in the first place, but rose to the challenge, accepted it, and now he faces the consequences of doing so. And that's tough.
Frederic?
We have to be a bit careful because we're out here, a lot of people emotionally talking about Tudor, and rightfully so, because what he did was he put the team or the club in front of himself, which I think is in this day and age a rarity in itself. However, he's not a saint. I mean, the whole story of him driving from Split to Juventus, like people act like he was coming by foot with a cross on his back. I mean, he was sitting comfortably in his Range Rover. So I mean, it's not like he sacrificed everything to be here. But what he
I thought
did,
it was a Mercedes A-Class, but okay.
that was the follow car with provision. No, no, but I mean, he tried his best. I honestly think that he tried whatever he could do, but he reached his ceiling in June. That was the epitome of what Tudor can do. We tried to stretch that out for obvious reasons that we already talked about, but you knew going in that this wasn't a coach that was going to get the most out of this team. But we were blindsided a bit because we thought, hey, we as a team we're stronger given the transfers and everything. So maybe Igor will pull it off. But then you see the mental aspect of a locker room or a team in itself when the teams get put under pressure by media, by fans, whatever. How do you handle that? And I think only a coach with vast experience or balls the size of elephant balls could weather the storm, and Tudor obviously couldn't. I think he changed his formation 4 times during the game yesterday. That in itself is enough to say, okay, this is our stopping point, because I mean, this means that you haven't prepared well enough, or that you're just holding, grasping onto something that isn't there. So
He heard you, Frederic. He heard you not making the right changes. So mind games.
He did them all.
He made all the changes.
He did everything. He did everything. No, but it's sad. I mean, it's sad for him because to me, he's a Juventus legend. I saw him play. I saw him scoring that winning goal against Deportivo La Coruña in the Champions League when I still had some hair, and I have nothing but fond memories of him. And the memory now gets a bit tarnished in a way, but there's no room for emotion now. I said this several times, and I repeated this in our Scoop episode this morning. We need Champions League. It's as simple as that. If we don't make that, then Juventus, as we know it or as we knew it, is completely over and done with. So there's no room for emotion. There's no room for, looking back and the good memories. Or granted, he did some things well, but I dare to say that 60% of what he did was completely wrong and completely not in line with what we expect from Juventus as a whole, and especially not from the team. But I will reiterate and state. I'm sorry. I will reiterate and state
Go ahead.
that the players are at fault too. And I see a lot of Komoli hate going on in the chat. I'll focus onto that a bit later on.
We will talk about Komoli. We will talk about Komoli and management and what we feel about that later. So stay with us. Kevin, what do you got?
I want to defend my own emotional reaction here. And Frederic, my dear friend, saying there's no time for emotion, and our pal Sky here in the chat being very adamant that hates all this emotional sentiment. Don't bring feelings to this. He was paid to do a job and he failed. Yes, but I'm not. I'm just as upset as everyone here around the state of this club, and where we find ourselves. It is unacceptable and inexcusable for a club of this stature, after so many years, to find ourselves in this position where we are going to have 3 coaches on payroll. It is inexcusable. However, this is a game played by humans. Humans are emotional. We watch this because we like to see our team win. That gives us joy. That is an emotion. Like that. That's why we engage in sport and entertainment. And Tudor is a person who has history with this club. So seeing him try to bring more to it strikes emotion. He was not good enough. Far from it. Probably never should have been brought on, even though he wasn't first choice for this season. There were other options. That's a failure on Komoli. That's a failure on Elkin. That's a failure on the rest of the Juve management structure for not having other options and putting all your eggs into the Conte basket, and then struggling to go after Gasperini, who had already given his word to Roma, who was not going to break that word, and not having any other options. Conte tried, wasn't up to it, ultimately failed, given his sacking and the conversation we're having today. It is his, I guess in a way, yes, it is his fault because he didn't deliver upon the expectations. But all of us here know that he's not a Juve quality top coach, having never survived a full season with any team in his 10 plus years of managerial experience. So yeah, I can show the guy a little bit of sympathy, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
No, granted. I'm sorry, Zach. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just was going to kind of echo that. I think when he was, and we've did episodes, we talked coaches over the summer in our Scoop episode series, and when we retained Tudor, for me at least, I knew that the end was written just by his history. I think good intentions, and I know he had good intentions at Juventus, but you don't go 13 years, it's like a job hopper. You review a resume, that's a red flag, and that's exactly kind of what he was. And I expected it to maybe be talking about it come winter transfer window, maybe not this early, but and that's going to kind of transition into our management conversation kind of as we look forward and what faith we have in this management team. Yeah, we have Mitch supporting Kevin's emotion, but I think when specific about Tudor. Comoli retaining Tudor was sort of I viewed it as sort of a panic last option. We need to get somebody for the Club World Cup, as opposed to taking the time to actually make the right decision, which is not a good thing when you're talking about the structure and the senior management of your club. Frederic, what were you going to say?
I was going to say two things. The first thing, I knew that it was going south during the Club World Cup when we were trashed with 5-1 against City, because I expected a reaction from Tudor, not just on the pitch or whatever or in media, but in the transfer market as well. And everything stayed silent. And that's when I knew, this is not the Tudor that we know, because the Tudor that we knew would never accept his team Juventus get beat with a 5-1 score and then do nothing. So that had me a little jumpy at that point. And the other thing I'd like to highlight is as well the fact that we tried to get in other coaches, but I think it's very normal for a person coming into the club, Comoli, then to, after failed attempts, to give in to the majority of people who have already been there for a number of years and to follow their advice. And their advice was clearly stick with Tudor. He's proven himself. He deserves a shot, this and that. So, in all fairness, I think if Comoli went against the grain with another decision, it would have created more of a disagreement internally and maybe made the future even bleaker for us. So I'm not sure if he's to blame, nor is Tudor. I think it's, the sum of all parts being negative for now. And when things start going afloat in a negative fashion, then it often spirals further and further. And I think this is what we're experiencing. So yeah, I don't think it's easy to point fingers and say this is the main culprit. We're in this situation because of this, that, him or her. I just think it's a culmination of everything that happened over the last couple of years, and we always made it through by the skin of our teeth. And now it's become apparent that making it through by the skin of your teeth is not always going to cut it.
No, and I think this is a good pivot point to look kind of towards the future. We've said a lot of our piece and about Tudor. It's SF folks in the chat, and as we pivot, I do want to shout out folks in here. We've had a really good discussion for the folks in chat, so I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you contributing to this sort of our real-time processing of Tudor's short time at Juventus. We've got RB Comps, we've got Sky, we've got Icon, Kalashi, Kielostar, Azaru, Mitch, and I'm not sure if this LJJ, and then ACNENQ. I'm not sure if that's a name. Apologies if it is, but I just spelled that one out. And everyone else joining with us, so we appreciate you very much. Let's pivot to moving forward. Okay, so we talked about Tudor. Everybody in the chat seems to want to talk management. We've also talked management, and so the question is, okay, we've got no coach, we have no sporting director, but we have Comoli, we've got Chiellini, we've got Modesto. Are these the yes or no? Kevin first. Are these the people to bring us back?
No, they're not, and especially the man who having the strongest links to the club right now. I mean, at the time of recording, and when the time somebody might be listening to this, there might be a new coach announced or secured. But the Spalletti rumors do not excite me. For those of you who listened to our recording with Beppe last Thursday, he asked us one name that we didn't want to see, and my first answer was Spalletti. I think we were split. That the three of us plus Beppe, it was me and Zach were team Spalletti, and Federic and Beppe were team Mancini, for obvious reasons. I'm concerned with the Spalletti and his past and his stubbornness, particularly with what we uh, saw with La Nazionale at the recent Euros, and his stubbornness in formation and in players, and our criticisms of Tudor early in the season and of Malta last season were in stubbornness and unwillingness to change and adapt. And here we are, rumored to be signing on with someone who showed a lot of stubbornness and inability to react and figure out the best way to get the best performance out of the players at your disposal and the positions they can play and the talent and quality that you have. And it certainly does nobody favors, as our buddy Colo99 referenced earlier, that our Capitano was, as we know, left out of that Euro squad and does not have a good relationship with Spalletti. And if that's getting brought into our locker room, why? Just like that goes back to the management for me, right? Like, you have a coach who historically has been stubborn. When we've had stubborn coaches for the previous two iterations and have moved on from them. And you have a captain, a player who we know does not stand up to the grandeur and to the legacy of so many Juve midfielders. But he's the best dude we have right now. And he is our captain. And you're going to bring in a coach who there have been public issues with. Like, why would you sign yourselves up to that situation when the club is already in this position? It just, the decision making just blows my mind. Now, it might not end up being Spalletti, but I don't know. I'll shut up because it does make my blood boil.
Well, before we move on, before we move on, Frederic, from a scoop standpoint, where do we stand on the next coach of Juventus?
Our next coach will probably be Spalletti. There should be a face-to-face meeting tomorrow. They're working out details as we speak. The last thing I heard of is a contract for 2 years, not a hefty sum. I think it's around 2.8 million a season.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
I don't understand the negativity, but that's just me. I'll speak about that in a bit. But they had numerous talks today.
You don't understand the negativity. Did you just say that, Frederic?
Yeah.
I know you don't. I know you don't want Spalletti. What are you talking about? You don't understand the negativity.
I took my time today because it was my day off to objectively zoom out of the Juventus world and just look at the names of the people that are available. And I'll just say one thing. I look back at Spalletti's track record, and every time he coached a club team, not a national team, and he took over the helm, he had very good results. And I mean very good results. He took Napoli to something that was never dreamed of at Naples, to that Scudetto win. He took Roma 1.0 to compete with a legendary Inter side up until the final match day. And the fact, and that this for me is the biggest thing that I take away from this, he was in these 3 or 4 talks they held today, was very humble and very eager to prove that he's worthy of a shot at Juventus, in the sense that he had a clear vision of what he wanted, how to execute it, and he's somebody that's still in touch with everything that happens around Italian football. So I'm not popping bottles here, not at all. But if you look at the short list and the people that are available at this point, then if we compare Spalletti to Tudor, I mean, that's like comparing Baldini with Guardiola.
Yeah, there's no question that Spalletti's been successful. Yeah, I mean, that's not in dispute.
He's tactically 10 leagues above Tudor. He's even 5 leagues above Motta. We finally have a coach worthy of the name coach on the bench if he signs. I'm not a fan of the man Spalletti.
Hmm.
I resent him. I can't stand him. Can't look at his face or whatever in press conferences and whatever. But the fact remains that he is a very, very good coach. Maybe not a top coach, but if we are honest, then we're not a top side ourselves. This is from all the candidates we read and see, the only person I have faith in that can restore somewhat of the old Juventus values. And for me, that's the starting point. I don't need to be winning Champions Leagues or Serie A's, but I need my team to be competitive in some way. And I think he's the person that can do that. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong, but that's just my opinion. The other thing I wish to highlight is the fact that um, we speak about coaches and systems and tactical formations, which are very important in modern day football. I agree. But the first thing that you need to do is make yourself visible as boss in whatever way, shape, or form. And Tudor didn't do it. Mota didn't do it. Spalletti is somebody who's very rigorous, very structurized, and comes in day one and says what he expects. And he expects the players to follow him. And if you don't follow him, you're out. So it kind of leans towards the mentality that Kamoli has. And I think that's good because you have a coach and a general director who both have share a same view, meaning that our general director, the person who's responsible for whether or not signing Spalletti, will eventually have to follow him. If that's a good thing, I'm not sure. Nobody has a crystal ball, but at least we know that there are people with a vision and people that will, stay afloat or try to keep the ship afloat. So I'm positively optimistic if Spalletti's going to be the man, just because of the things that he's proven that he can do. I don't like him, but I don't have to go out with him. I don't have to share my bed with him. I just want him to get this squad to play football.
I mean,
And
there's three bonuses for Spalletti as far as I'm concerned. One, it is true. He's a proven winner. Over 1,000 games managed. He's been very successful in over the last decade, especially with the Roma, his in Napoli, and his Inter team. Two, he will be an adult in the room. I think a lot of us expected Tudor to come in there and kind of bring people by the neck if need be to kind of wake up and have some balls. It didn't happen very clearly. He'll go in there and he'll at least try to do that. And maybe the most important reason why Spalletti would work is that he's bald. Obviously, a point of appreciation for Frederic and I. But as I say, kicking it back to Kevin, that he'll be an adult in the room. I said this morning when we did our scoop episode that Spalletti kind of has his own brand of insane, not to Conti level, but he has his own kind of brand of insanity. And as far as I'm concerned, the odds are just as good that his brand of insanity could rally this team as destroy it. Is that the take you have, Kevin, when you look at a potential Spalletti-led Juventus, or at least this version of Juventus?
That's a really good question, and honestly, not something I had thought about, but maybe they do actually need that. So let me pause before I continue. So what I said earlier around my displeasure around his potential hiring remains true. I don't like this option for these reasons. I think we have the potential to be signing ourselves up to some of the same challenges we've experienced with other managers, albeit he's much more experienced. And the challenges with Locatelli, I don't like either. Frederic brings a lot of kind of level-headedness to this because Frederic, I know you don't like him as an option either, but trying to be
market.
This is a first. This is a first.
Level-headed. It is.
Zach,
It is.
I can't believe I've
I'm marking
described
the day
Frederic
and
as
time.
being
Oh my
level-headed.
god! All right, continue, Kevin.
Um, there aren't a lot of options out there. someone with experience who can come in and put this locker room in its place and get them to understand what it means to be representing this shirt. So even though Spalletti, to the best of my knowledge, is no Juventino, given the Napoli tattoo that he has on his left forearm,
Mm,
I don't know. Being Italian, growing up in Italy, whether he's a Juventino or not, he understands what it means to put on this shirt. He understands the significance of this club, and if that craziness can get people like Cambiaso to like put his head down and just deliver, who have shown a level of unwarranted entitlement, and people who aren't coming in and doing the work that we expect. Uh, let's just say I'm willing to be surprised, and I look forward to it.
I'm just gonna add something, Kevin. You made a lot of sense. I want to add two things. Spalletti never in his whole career said something bad about Juventus or started some polarizing thing about Juventus, as most coaches in Serie A do. So I feel that the respect was always there. And another thing, his son has been working for Juventus for 2 years already. He's a scout or part of the scouting program of Juventus. So to me, I see somebody saying, yeah, Napoli fan, Napoli tattoo. He could even tattoo the Scudetto from Napoli on his forehead. I don't even care. I just want somebody capable. I want somebody who has a track record, a proven track record of ships that are sinking and salvaging them and pointing them in the right direction. And this is a person that I don't like as a person as a whole. But if you have the balls to enter Rome and tell Totti to fuck off, then you got a big set of balls on you. And I think this is something that we need at this point. I think the whole kindergarten, dressing room, toxic environment thing has gone a little crazy, has gone a little too far. And I think we need somebody firm to put a stop to that and lay the foundation for what we try to achieve. So I see a lot of similarities with Conte in that respect, because Conte came at Juve, didn't have a proven track record, but set the bar high. He set the bar high. He set the goals high. He knew what he wanted to achieve. He knew what he had to do in order to achieve those things, and was in complete harmony with management back then and with the players. And there's not a single player that's going to talk badly about Conte, other than the fact that they had to work their asses off until literally vomiting. And that's the reason why we thrived under Conte, because not only were we physically a lot stronger, we could run for like 2 games straight in a row, but mentally we were very, very strong. We didn't have the strongest players in our first season, but we were a unit. And that's been torn apart over the last few years by all these comings and goings of people who don't have the faintest idea on how to assess this problem. Now we have somebody who's done it in the past in Italy with a lot of teams that, where the pressure is on, because if you coach a Roma side, you know that the whole city of Rome is looking at you very closely. The same goes for Napoli. So we have somebody, and may I suggest also somebody who can elevate players. What he did with Brozovic at Napoli was awesome in my regards. Brozovic was a player that they were happy to get rid of. He reinvented Brozovic. He made Icardi, Osimhen better than they were, in my opinion. If he can do the same with a Koopmeiners, with a Yildiz, with a David, with an Openda, I'm all for it.
The chat is quite taken aback, Frederic, by your sort of optimism and positivity here. And I think I might be too as well. So I guess the question is be honest with us. Are you coping to the inevitable appointment of Spalletti, or is this the reflections
No.
of Frederic that have happened over the course of his day off work?
No, I mean, it was pretty obvious. I wasn't pro Mota from the get-go
You were not.
because I wasn't, and I think we have testaments to that
Yeah.
on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
But because the issues that Mota had, or the how shall I put it, the negatives were so apparent even before working on them that I wasn't sure that he was going to remedy them. I felt the same with Tudor. I mean, you and I shared that same opinion, and the track record once again spoke for itself. Now have a chance to get a coach in who knows Serie A, who knows the players, who knows Juventus as a team and what it represented, who knows also the insides and outs of Juventus to this day because the son works there full time, and he is somebody that has proven that he can pull off amazing things if given the chance and support. I mean, if you put those positive outcomings, and you zoom out of the whole shit show that we're in right now, then it makes sense. It just makes sense. And this is the first time in years that I feel like something is making sense with regards to a big Juventus decision. So that explains my positivity. I'm not going to say that this is, the thing that's going to salvage us and get us Champions League trophies in, or that Spalletti's demand to do so. But at this given point in time, in the situation that we're in right now, this just makes a whole lot of sense. And that, for me, speaks volumes.
All right. Paid
Well, it makes
spokesman.
a whole lot of sense compared to the alternative of that is quite the creative spelling of Palladino, but I'll
He's
give you
made
a
him
pass on that.
Brazilian.
That's
He's
It's
made
the
him
Brazilian.
SJ.
Yeah.
But
No, it makes sense.
look, I'm not a Spalletti fan. I think I've made that quite clear. But if gun to my head, a choice between Palladino and Spalletti, it's every single day and twice on Sunday Spalletti over the alternative of Palladino, where Palladino is in his career right now,
Yeah.
and having faith that somebody come in and get this locker room in order.
And
Yeah,
not just
so-
Palladino.
Well, hold on. Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting at, Frederic, is Kevin. Paid Spalletti spokesman Frederic. All right. Has he convinced you that he is the man over not just Palladino and Mancini, who I know that we don't want, but guys like Terzic or Marco Rosa, or I don't even know if I should include bringing back Mota into this equation. But like when you look at the Jabi or Zidane, maybe some of the ones that are just way out of reach. But like, is Spalletti, are you convinced now, is the best we can do under the circumstances Spalletti?
I mean, Frederic had some great points, and the folks in the chat have supported that. And for those listening to this and not watching the live stream, the surprise of the positivity that Frederic has oozing out of him over Spalletti's candidacy for being our next manager is surprising our audience here. Look, but it's not my job. Like we're three bums talking about a club that we love. We're not paid and contracted millions to be putting this team together. I don't know if he's the best. I think just if you tell me between Spalletti, Mancini, Palladino, definitely not Palladino. He's not there yet, given where we are. Do I think he has an opportunity to coach Juve in the future if he continues to grow? Yes, I do. Now, no. I don't like Mancini for obvious reasons with everything that he represents. And Spalletti, I'm not a fan of. I think if we knew that we were moving on from Tudor, this might be an unpopular thing to say. I would have jumped at Rafa Benitez before he just signed for Panathinaikos or whoever he just signed for within the last week. He's obviously a senior guy who it's not even worth talking about because it's a non-option at this point. But I just don't know. I think Frederic gave him a pretty good fighting chance and brought up a lot of good points, but
All
I don't
right.
know.
We stand here convinced by Frederic, advocate Frederic. So, real quick question before we kind of transition and talk about the player side of this. Jurgen asked, and I think somebody else did earlier in the chat. They mentioned Frederic, sort of the 2-year contract for Spelly. Could you talk just real briefly about what's being talked about with regards to his contract, and then I want to turn to a question that several people have had about this crop of players.
Well, it's a 2-year contract, but it's not a 2-year contract. There's nothing set in stone yet. The first talks were about a 3-year contract that was demanded by Spalletti, which Comoli said, I'm not going to do that because we have 3 coaches that we're going to pay simultaneously. I'm not going to take that risk, with all respect. And the last thing I know is that Spalletti himself said, well, just give me a contract to the end of the season, and we'll just take it from there. Maybe they'll put some clause in, like if they reach Champions League, then it gets automatically renewed for 1 season, which I wouldn't be opposed to, because if you can get this team to where it is right now, and you can get them into Champions League direct qualification, I think you earn that extra season. And we all know that Spalletti is a guy who needs a project or a long-term vision in order to thrive. So, with that being said, I think the general consensus here is, let's give it a shot. I'll fuck off if it doesn't work, but if it does work, I want to make sure that I can expand this. And I think that's music to Comoli's ears as well, because Comoli knows for a fact, and we have to be very objective here. I know we're Juve supporters, but if you have, as a top coach, have the choice between coaching a number of teams, then probably Juventus will be, downward to the list if you're not a Juve fan, for simple reasons. We don't have the money that Liverpool, Barca, Real Madrid, Manchester City, hell, even Newcastle have. We certainly don't have the appeal, especially not if we don't qualify for Champions League. And third, we're still under UEFA investigation. So I think we need to take this one step at a time. Get the qualification in, and I hope that we can be sure of qualification by the end of April or something, that we don't have to, nail bite our way through May and the beginning of June in order to get salvaged, and then see what we can do and what the needs are for the team and the club. And I think that's a better way of getting things across, rather than to just haphazardly put something together and bring a structure in, because that's how it went with Motta. Here are the keys to the kingdom. You got 4 years. Oh, you want Koopmeiners? No problem. We'll get them for you. Nah, 70 million. Nah, done. You see where those choices, ended up. So I think it's very thought out of. It's very planned, not haphazardly put together, but something along the lines of, I need to prove myself. Comoli, you need to prove yourself, in between the lines, but the players as well. So with that being said, I think Comoli and Spalletti in that respect share a certain vision. And whether, they'll renew that for 1 year, 2 years, I don't care, because if Spalletti gets results in that we need, then he deserves to stay. It's
But
not
this
like
was the
a
guy that was also available at the beginning of the season, though,
quick fact.
right?
We checked.
Okay.
Yes. We checked with Spalletti, and before we got to the whole Tudor, and I even think Gasparini. I think the first
Mhm.
on the list was Conte, second was Spalletti, and Spalletti was emotionally heartbroken by what happened in Italy, and he said, "I feel very honored, but I'm not ready,
Hmm.
mentally nor physically, because this
Interesting.
whole national team debacle has put kind of a stress on me, and I'm, on the verge of falling into a depression, and I don't want to, burden you people with that." So that was a very unselfish decision that he made, because knowing Juventus, he could have signed a contract for 2, 3 years
If
and stand to
if
make
that
a
is
lot of
true,
money.
respect to him for just
That
his
Mhm.
that's what
self-awareness. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my
Yep.
my source told me, and he was actually heartbroken, and I think it was a call with Chiellini at the time, and he never stopped thanking Chiellini for the opportunity, but he said, I'm not capable of pulling this off right now. So having that insight, having that, self-reflection, to me speaks volumes about who you are as a coach. Because anybody can sign a contract, say, hey, I'm gonna get paid anyway. If they want to fire me, cool. I'll just grab the big bag of money. But it wasn't about the money, and it's never been about the money with Spalletti. Even at Zenit St. Petersburg, he made something about a team that wasn't. It was backed by billionaires, but there wasn't anything tangible there. He, made the first steps to make Zenit what Zenit is right now. Granted, they're not a European top side, but if you see from where they came from, I mean, hats off to him. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Hats off to him. I don't like him, but what he's done as a coach, I think warrants some respect in that regard.
All right, let's move on to our last topic of today. Let's assume, Kevin, that Spalletti is the coach. Let's assume that he's going to play a 4-3-3. Okay, because that's what he generally plays. You had said earlier that this group of players, all things equal and in a vacuum, are a top 4 squad. When you kind of filter that through Spalletti's 4-3-3, do you stick by that?
If he looks at this current squad and he truly believes that that is going to be the best way to get results from the players at his disposal, then sure. I think one thing that is interesting about Spalletti is I think he does show at times a bit of tactical fluidity and isn't married to a system. I mean, I think we associate him a bit with 4-3-3, just given what he did with with Roma like earlier in his career for sure, and also with Napoli. But with the Italian national team, he was playing with 3 at the back. Like he was with the 3-5-2, so he's not beholden to any system. And I do think, despite his stubbornness at the Euros, and it was very difficult watching that Italian side play. Um, I think he was trying to get the best out of the team. Um, it obviously didn't work. Um, but if the 4-3-3 is what he thinks is going to be the best, then good. Then deploy that and put the players in the right position. But I would also hope that, given that he's a coach, has been doing this for decades, if he thinks there's a better deployment of these players that will get the best out of the squad, I hope he does that.
I think he'll stick with a 4-3-3, especially in the beginning. And if he gets more comfortable and gets to know the players better and maybe pushes them to the limit physically or gets them in a better shape physically, I think he'll try to adapt a 4-2-3-1 or, a 4-3-2-1, depending if you're in possession or not. And I think for our team, that's the best formation we could ever hope for. And in my opinion, I think you can get the best out of the players. We'll see João Mario a lot more in a 4-3-3, I think, which for me is a good thing because I like João Mario as a player. We'll get rid of the useless 2-man midfield, which for me is another reason to eventually pop a bottle of champagne eventually. And we'll get to see our new signings play a hell of a lot more minutes and getting accustomed to the fact that they're playing at Juventus, because we're quick to judge Openda, David, and granted, David and Openda are not my favorite players, but if you see the minutes that they had in a team that performs the way the team performed over the last few games, that's not a blessing for a new player. So we'll be effectively starting from zero formation wise, and I think a lot of players will be relieved because now you can judge players on the things that they can accomplish instead of having to pick a certain player because he fits your formation or your tactical approach to a game.
Mhm.
And that's the reverse card right there. So that's also one of the things why I'm cautiously optimistic about.
All right, hit. I think we'll end with this. We're sitting on a 4-3-3, Frederic. What is Spalletti's best 11 4-3-3?
I think Di Gregorio in goal. Hate to say it, but I think a back four consisting Kalulu, Bremer, Kelly.
Bremer's. I
Cambiasso.
mean, yeah, I guess Bremer will be coming back. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, you could switch him with Gatti or Rugani for the time being. The same goes for Cabal, but then I think we'll see Locatelli Cope in a two-man pivot in front of defense, followed by a three-man offensive line consisting of I think Conceição, Penda, and Yildiz, with David or Vlahovic up front. So in that respect, I
Thuram
think
on the bench.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I mean that's a 4-2-3-1, not a 4-3-3. I know you had said that, but
yeah.
Kevin, do you agree with that formation?
In a 4-2-3-1.
No. I'm talking about.
I mean,
I'm just talking about. Do you agree 4-2-3-1 versus 4-3-3? And if you say 4-3-3, as
no,
folks
I mean,
in the chat say, what's
go,
going on with
I'd
Toronto?
go 4-3-3 because I mean, even in the 4-2-3-1, Coop Miners has been very vocal that he hates being that far deep.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he struggles with that. But in a 4-3-3, I mean, with the players we have now, including the injuries, it's Kalulu, Gatti, Kelly, Cambiasso. The three in the midfield is Thuram, Locatelli, and either Coop Miners or McKennie. And the front three is, honestly, I hate that I'm going to say this right now, but I'd go Yildiz, Vlahovic, Conceição.
And that's the beauty of it as well.
I'd start Vlahovic. I've like his work ethic. I mean, yesterday's match was atrocious. But David right now, I think, I don't know. I had high hopes for him, Zach. I know you've been very supportive and positive about his signing and his history and what he could bring to this team. And I know Vlahovic is leaving. I was the first to want to see him be sold over the summer, but for where we are right now, I think I'd like to see him there. I think pound for pound, he still is our strongest striker and our best bet on finishing capability, despite all of our shared frustration with him. And right now, it's about doing anything we can do to get to top four, which is why I'd put that to the side. And I think that formation allows for subs to come in and make a change. I think seeing Openda come in there, I still would like to see him get some more minutes. I think if Zagrova comes in and gets back to health, like he can be an alternative to Yildiz as a bit of like an inverted winger on that side, or just a direct replacement for Conceição or João Mario.
I think that's the beauty of this whole formation, because you can put teams, you can be flexible about the players that you bring in, but you don't have to get a player out of his natural position in order to work. And I think that's the beauty of the 4-3-3 or the 4-2-1-3 or the 4-3-2-1 or whatever you want to call it, or however you want to shift it. But you can put the players in their natural positions and adapt very easily. And I think that's one of the reasons why Spalletti was somebody that they need or wanted to bring in.
I'll say that there's two players on our team that a 4-3-3 does not suit. The first is Kostic, which I don't think anyone's too concerned about. But
moving on.
Yeah. The other one is, we brought in João Mario to be more of a wing back, which is sort of his natural position, sort of based on how he likes to play, and because he's not really a true winger, and he's not really a good fullback because his previous club experimented with that, and it did not work too well. Are you concerned, Frederic, a player, Jean Mario, that we were excited to see at wing back, might completely get frozen out of this squad if we switch to a 4-3-3?
No, I think he's the typical player that Spalletti as a coach likes as a wing back. And granted, he's not very good defensively, but Spalletti is known to work on those details individually. So I think that Spalletti can use him in the way that we expected to see John Mario, and even improve him defensively. So I think that's a win-win. Also, given the fact that the couple of minutes that John Mario had, he's not going to be too happy, and I'm sure he'll get more under Spalletti. And with regards to the Koopmeiners comment, I think if Spalletti can make it work, or even put him out, in another role, that's the thing. I think that Spalletti at this point is the only coach that can achieve something with the material at hand. And of course, he's going to ask for another wing back or another central defender, another midfielder for January, which is already in the plans. But at least you have somebody who can bring the value and the rendement of the players that we have right now to a higher extent. And I think this is something that we desperately need, because if you see our players playing as a whole, they were underperforming. They were just underperforming. And if you're not the best team technically, and you don't have the best coach tactically, and you even lack the physicality, then there's not much you can do about that.
Alrighty. Well, I think, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow panelists, Kevin and Frederic, I believe we've covered everything with regards to Tudor and the team moving forward. I really want to express my appreciation to the two of you gentlemen, as well as to the very active chat that we had. Y'all have been fantastic discussing and interacting with us on a lot of the topics. We will continue to bring coverage, Frederic and I, from the Scoop perspective, should that be necessary on the coaching front, as well as the broader Turn Giants team for our post games for the couple games we have this week, as well as into the future. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your participation. And until next time, as always, Forza Juve.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
I was good in the middle.